Our next speaker has promised to give us an introduction to the publishing field. The Darwinistic perspective is what we're going to hear about now. And I can see that she is about to wear her microphone. Dyveke, Sijm, you've promised to give us a Darwinistic perspective on publishing. Thank you.
Academic publishing, the Darwin perspective. To give a little perspective on myself, allow me to introduce myself. I am a member of the committee, UBVA, appointed by the Danish Association of Librarians. My job is working for the DEF Consortia, where I am a licensing team coordinator. DEF is a licensing consortia, negotiating license agreements both with national and international publishers on behalf of Danish educational institutions, including the Danish universities. My talk today aims to present an alternative view on academic publishing. By seeing academic publishing as an ecosystem inhabited by organisms struggling for survival, we are provided with more logic explanations for what else can appear to be stunningly irrational behavior. The view can also create room for alternative thinking for how to create a better balance between creators, owners, and users of copyright within academia, at least when we focus on the production of research articles. Within the ecosystem of academic publishing, we have three dominating species interacting with each other: authors, publishers, and research institutions. The behavior of individual members of each species represents both threats and opportunities for other individuals in the same way as the general surviving strategy executed by each species may make it easier or more difficult for other species to thrive within the ecosystem. If we take a look at survival strategies, the answer to the question how to survive as an academic can be delivered by the well-known phrase, publish or perish, which was coined in an academic context as early as 1942. Indeed, using or misusing the words of Jane Austen, it is a truth universally acknowledged that a researcher in possession of a good manuscript must be in want of a publisher. And like Darcy certainly knew that he was a good catch, so does many academic publishers. Academic credit, both in terms of peer recognition and monetary reward from funders, is, among other things, generated through publishing research in high-ranking journals. This fact being at the forefront of the researcher's mind, it is no surprise that contractual terms offered by publishers is of less interest to the individual researchers than the fact that his or her manuscript has been accepted for publication. Especially if we are talking about high-ranking journals with a rejection ratio of 70, 80, 90%, and you find yourself in the situation of being among the few selected, how likely are you to protest over contractual terms? Academic publishers, on their part, survive by generating revenue for their stakeholders. And these, it's worth noticing, is not always shareholders in it for the profit. They may, in fact, also be scholarly societies trying to generate revenue to support activities within their academic field. In order to generate revenue, academic publishers under the classic model sell access to their journals, either to individuals or to research institutions. However, today they also, to a growing extent, generate revenue by responding to the demand for open access by introducing business models based on publication fees. Last but not least, research institutions and their research libraries compete by attracting and supporting successful researchers and the delivery of high-quality educational programs. To reach this goal, they must also be able to offer high-quality library services, including exhaustive access to the literature. The internal balance of an ecosystem can change instantly or over time as a consequence of external factors like climate change. The arrival of the internet can be perceived as such a climate change for scholarly communication. The internet in the 90s gave birth to the electronic journal and the subsequent introduction of the big deal, in which publishers bundled need to have high-ranking journals together with lower-ranking nice-to-have journals, and offered these bundles to research libraries at huge discounts compared to what libraries would have had to pay had they continued to purchase the titles on an individual basis. It was, to say it that way, an offer that could not be refused and was not refused. However, once journals was only available in the electronic format, the negative impact for research libraries not to renew the big deals meant that they would no longer be able to fulfill their core library task of providing exhaustive access to the academic literature. This have meant for many years that libraries have accepted price increases way beyond inflation or consumer index developments. Price increases between 4% and 10% in some fields are not unusual. A few numbers, I think, is in place. The International Association of Scientific, Technical, and Medical Publishers estimated that in their 2015 report that revenue generated by STM academic journals in 2013 was $10 billion. Elsevier, the largest commercial publisher of academic content for 2015, reported a revenue of 2 billion British pounds. Even taking the current value of the pound into consideration, this is an astonishing figure. The standard argument for publishers to increase prices is rise of production costs. I guess that makes sense if you actually include shareholder dividend as a production cost. The concept of open access was born by the turn of the millennium as a solution to serial prices, the fact or the situation created by declining library budgets and increasing costs of the big deal. Two main routes exist today. The open access route relying on the original reader pays model, also called the green route, in which open access is secured by authors self-archiving copies of the published manuscript in an institutional repository after an embargo period imposed to protect the underlying business model. Another model is the golden route, relying on authors, funders, or their research institutions being willing and able to pay a fee for having the article published. Under this model, of course, the article is immediately available without any delay. It can be done both based on a fee paid directly by the author, or it can also be based on a model based on crowdfunding principles where number of libraries or research institutions come together to finance the publication. This is a model that is more seen within e-books, the e-book area. If we focus on the fees for article APCs, they vary quite substantially, but often lies between 1,000 and 2,000 pounds. And the golden route, the APC-based model today represent a very lucrative revenue stream for publishers, even more so as publishers offer not only APC models for full open access journals, but also offer authors the possibility to publish articles based on APC fees in subscription journals, here drawing on the subscription journal's brand to attract authors to choose this model, but without offsetting the income in lowering subscription prices. This principle is also called the double dipping factor. If we return to the evolutionary perspective on academic publishing, how, if at all, does different open access strategies affect the struggle of life situation for authors and research institutions? Are open access strategies effective as means to the end of creating an environment allowing researchers and research institutions to increase their chance of survival, at least professionally? Or, if we choose that perspective, do those strategies make it more difficult for publishers to exploit the survival strategies of researchers and research institutions? The first reading on how many Danish research publications is open access was conducted in March 2016 and shown that less than 20% was actually publicly available from institutional repositories, but that up to 60% could have been. In other words, researchers do not self-archive just because librarians or politicians think they should. Moving on to research institutions, the struggle to provide exhaustive access to the literature is not made easier by green open access. Content is not purchased on an article-based level, and institutions do not receive a discount for the price of journals, even though some of their content may be freely available in repositories. And how about publishers? No increased struggle for life here, I'm afraid. Stock market analysis has, for quite some time now, not considered green open access as a business model threat. Publishers can and do effectively protect the subscription-based model by prolonging embargo periods and allowing self-archiving of only earlier version of the published manuscript. And though many research institutions try to negotiate self-archiving rights into their license agreements, that's one of the things we try to do within my organization, these negotiations are obviously taking place after authors already have handed over their copyrights. So, what to do? The Committee for the Protection of Scientific and Scholarly Work supports the idea of an exception for academic users having the right to self-archive copies of their articles. This exception to the copyright has already been introduced in Germany, the Netherlands, and lately also in France. This may give us more open access, but is not likely to change the fundamental power structure of the entire ecosystem. If we want to change the basic power structure of the system, we need to consider the fact that though researchers may be in want of publishers, it is also true that publishers are in want of authors. The bargaining position of individual researchers are weak, but their product are not weak. And as research institutions come together in consortia to put pressure on publishers in order to provide better prices and better conditions, it appears obvious that collective negotiations on behalf of academic authors should be more carefully considered. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dyveke Sijm. So let me just ask you, while we're switching speakers here, you said the ecosystem. We're talking about the ecosystem. You have, authors needing to publish in certain journals because those journals are, the right ones to publish in. So you have lay the groundwork for this ecosystem where you can earn so much money. Can you think about a way to turn that around?
Well, like I said, I think it's very important that the position of negotiation that today is actually not taking place at that point in time where authors are actually quite strong before they hand over the copyright to publishers, that is actually the area where we need to put more attention. Because that is, if we can strengthen that situation, for instance, by introducing collective negotiations like we have on the licensing side, yeah. I think that would be the area to focus in order to change the fundamental power structure.
So let's keep that in mind for our discussion. Thank you, Dyveke Sijm. Please give her a warm round of applause.